Okay, we're live. Okay, three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 162 that we are titling WhatsApp Tracking because that's obviously our main story. But seriously, in the last 2 weeks, nothing major, not major, but like nothing really has happened. It's the same nonsense over and over. The same website's been getting hacked. It's just more of the same, just nothing special. So I don't know how heavy we're going to be this week, but we'll get into it. I don't know, Tom, anything new happened to you? Anything?
No, it's honestly been pretty dull. Signal has got profiles in beta. They've got some new beta features that are pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. I don't use Signal a ton, but when I do, it's always a very pleasant experience.
See, I've had the opposite, and I think it's because I'm in a building, a cement building with no reception. So if you use Signal, obviously it's a text message replacement if you're on Android. So if you don't have service, the text message never goes through. So I think it tries to go through. If it doesn't, it sits on the server. But Wi-Fi does not work with SMS because that's not how it operates. So as soon as you go back to uh, data, they start coming through, but they come through in weird orders. And so that's that first part. And then if your friend reformats a phone or reinstalls it, sometimes you don't get those messages. Like there's a whole bunch of little bugs. But overall, for me, Signal's a net positive. I do enjoy all the features, and I do like knowing that they're secure for those people. But yeah.
I cannot wait for Signal to actually get a legitimate web app. Because their Chrome app, I get it. I understand why it's there, why they built it that way, but I don't have Chrome installed everywhere, believe it or not. And there are some places where I cannot use Chrome. So or I choose not to use Chrome, I should say that. So without a web client of some kind, it's really painful to be able to talk on Signal.
So, okay, and again, overall, Signal is a very much net positive. But I guess Tom and we've all moved to WhatsApp. A lot of our friends are on WhatsApp or Hangouts. To get people on iPhone to use Signal will never happen. So now you're left with the Android people, and it's, well, if you're going to install something, let's install something else. So I probably have 20 or 30 Signal people, but again, there's other ways to communicate with them, so I do.
Yeah, I don't have too many people on Signal, but the ones who are there, it's kind of reassuring to know, everything is end-to-end encrypted, and this is built by a company who values security above all else. It's pretty nice.
And to explain to people what they're doing and why they're doing it becomes annoying. And usually that very first thing that they're trying to get rid of is it scans your address book to find other Signal people. So if a friend installs it, it sends them a message saying, oh, they're on Signal. And that's a little weird and a little creepy the very first time. But what they're doing is they're trying to get people to use it. And we've gone over this on how we wish they didn't. Like it would just pop up nicely in your phone book quietly when you want to send a message. But they're also trying to spread their user base. But it is a little annoying.
Yeah, I agree. It's really the only way you're going to be able to say, hey, I don't have to talk to Bob on Hangouts anymore or QQ. I can talk to Bob on Signal because Bob just popped into my Signal app. That's awesome. It's great. So I get why they're doing it, but I agree with you. It's a little creepy unless you know how it works. And I will say it does work securely.
It's so Moxie Marlin Spike is trying to fix this with their new private contact discovery. The problem is the details are so hard to understand.
It's really dense.
And
really dense.
Like even we're listening to Security Now, and like Steve Gibson went through it, but it was still okay. This is some voodoo magic here, so we really need somebody to go through it. They need to put it out and let people hammer on it and come down with some dumbed down version that this is what it does simply. Clearly, it's much more complicated than that, but this is how it's going. So,
matter of time.
So, and again, remember, Facebook Messenger uses Signal on the private side. By the way, if if you're a Facebook user, Facebook Lite is a new app in the This is US only, and I think third world countries. I don't know what the third world countries are, but where if you have the Facebook Messenger app, you can replace it with this Messenger Lite. It's supposed to be better on battery, better on everything else. And it's great if you're not a sticker person or a game person or a sending money person or any other feature other than just messaging. The only downside is you don't have this Facebook private messaging. But if you're not using that anyway, who really cares? So
That's annoying. If they're going to strip out all the features, why don't they at least include private messaging? You think that'd be an easy add-on?
because I don't think they want the US people to do it, but I think they're realizing many people are not installing the messenger side of it because, oh, it's another app. Remember, we're really reluctant to install apps for whatever reason.
That's true.
I don't know. I've really liked the Facebook app from the very beginning. I thought the bubbles, the pop-ups, all that stuff was awesome. And Facebook bought a company, Beluga, way back when to do it. So they were going on a good platform to begin with. And they just added all these extra features because they wanted that walled garden approach. And people stopped. Like, it really was a battery drain, and it really hurt to use it. It's still, I like it a lot, and you can use Facebook Messenger on your computer. So it checked all the boxes off. But again, it's bloated. So now they made a light version, and I'm hoping that light version stays light. So.
Yeah, that would be nice. It's annoying to see like a great lightweight app or website add, just one more thing and just one other thing. And then one more thing on top of that. And then before you know it, the whole thing takes like 27 seconds to load and drains all your battery. And I mean, we've seen it happen to tons of different apps and websites.
So it's again, this is not another talk about messaging on your mobile phone.
Believe it or not.
But I mean, we can spend days and days on it. So
we're really here to talk about barbecue and
yes.
delicious barbecue.
So before we get there, let's talk about our main story. Before the main story, you're going to see this in the news in the next few days. Google Minis, that's that new product that Google launched. It looks like a little donut. Somebody had this weird bug that they've now replicated, and they have since fixed, that caused the Google Minis to constantly record. And it got a lot of people all hot and bothered, and I don't blame them because it was sending everything to the Google servers. The people realized that they fixed it immediately. If you read the article, I think they said within 15 minutes, the Android police person was immediately called, and the Google engineer had them there explaining it, replicating it, and I think it was fixed within a day. But again, it's a little creepy because you're saying I'm letting these assistants into my home, and I'm afraid of them recording, and now we have the first known case of it actually doing it. The problem was it was a feature, not a bug. But the good thing is because Google has their dashboard, you could have seen all the recordings, and you can delete it, which hopefully scrubs it from their server.
So in the interest of full transparency, just so everybody knows, I do work for Amazon. They do pay my bills, and Google is a competitor, especially in this space. So take what I say with that knowledge in mind. I really wish this bug were caught in QA. The fact that it wasn't is pretty concerning. That said, the response to the incident, right, of somebody contacting them, granted, somebody that is in the media, so you tend to pay attention to those bug reports a little bit more if you're launching a really public product like Google just did. But getting engineers, a phone call out to that person's house, getting engineers to actually come out and take the device physically. Like, somebody from Google didn't just call you, they went to your house and took the bad device away. That's really impressive. The response on this was spot on by Google. I'm glad they got it fixed. But I don't see how this wasn't caught in testing.
Well, the Amazon device, so they're saying that if you touch the top, it will activate it's basically saying the hot word for Google. Can you do that in the Echoes?
You can. So I've got a Gen 1 Echo behind me, and I've got a couple Echo Dots floating around. And they do. There's a button with a dot on it, and you push the dot button, and the ring lights up, and she talks. But
I'm testing it right now, and you're right, because I have one right in front of me.
Yeah, but so when you push that button, though, the ring lights up, right? So it looks like she's actively listening to you. Whether that's a software or hardware thing, I don't know. I don't work on the Alexa team. I don't work on those products at all. And I can't speak and don't speak for Amazon. But, I would not rely on a light ring at the top to be my, end all be all. Yes, this device is totally not listening to me. So just keep that in mind. I really wish this were caught in testing. It probably should be obvious when the Google Home is listening to you. I haven't used one, so I don't know if it is or not. But if my Echo lit up and stayed lit up all day long, yes, I would be concerned.
So it has their that four little dots that's what tells it that it's lighting up. And in the video here, it was next to a TV, a Sonos. It looks like a Sonos speaker that was, I guess, mimicking the pressure of touching it. Something like that through the sound. So, but again, it only affects pre-production units at Google I/O. It looks like. Just pre-production units. Anybody who ordered one through retail channels was not affected. But again, these are reviewers who found it and everything else. So the good news is they were very quick to respond. They were very quick to issue an apology and everything else and say, looks like all the right things. We're going to remove this until we can figure this out. But we don't want to violate your privacy and all this other stuff. I do like how the Echoes do it, where you have the big blue ring. I mean, you cannot miss it when it's going on, unless obviously you're not looking at it. I think with the Google Home products, it's not as obvious, which is a little annoying.
And let's be real here. All of these voice assistants, I have mind trip constantly. The TV will say something completely unrelated, not related to the hot word that I've said or anything, and she will pipe up and start saying stuff. I have walked into my kitchen in the morning, and music will be playing softly from the corner. I don't know who did that. I didn't do that. My wife didn't do that. Maybe somebody yelled through my front door to play music. But these things do happen. This is pretty new technology, and we are still going to get the kinks to work out. The really unfortunate part is that because this is so new, a new space, because it's such a public space, and because people are already concerned about the privacy implications of these devices, the fact that Google had this type of bug really, I would imagine, would sour people's interest in the entire field, no matter who is manufacturing the devices. And that's unfortunate, because I've gotten a lot of use out of mine. I actually really do like my Echo devices.
If you haven't bought one,
disclaimer intact.
Well, I have, I don't know, 7 or 8 different Echo products throughout the house, and I tell people, spend the $50 on the dot. And I would actually go so far as, now, if it's the first one and you're going to like it, buy the version 2 with the smart home hub built in, so you don't have hubs everywhere. But again, if you want to get in at the cheap, go buy a dot for $50. You'll love it, and then go from there. If I don't know how the Google Homes are, I'm going to get obviously 2 because I got 2 new phones, but I think it's one and the same. The Amazon version has a lot more skills and a lot more machine learning starting, but I'm sure Google is going to be catching up fast sooner than later.
So I bought the dot and bought a cheap set of Logitech wired speakers, hooked that to it, and it works fine for playing music and setting alarms and stuff.
So, well, anyway, so again, look, if you haven't got an assistant and you're really, you can be as paranoid as you want. We got that, because you are bringing a listening device and everything else. We don't know down to the silicon level what's happening, but I'm telling you, it's made my life a lot easier, and I'm happy I have it. So take that however you want. And then before one more story quickly, the FBI has arrested some bad actor doing bad things through VPN logs that were supposed to be hidden or not supposed to be leaked. And I'll put the link in the show notes. But basically, this guy was doing some bad things, and they contacted PureVPN. That was the name of the company, who very much says we do not keep any logs that can identify or help in monitoring a user's activity, but they do.
Yeah, amazingly enough, by not keeping logs that could identify or monitor user activity, they were able to provide the FBI logs to identify and or monitor user activity. Somebody is wrong here, and I think the people over at PureVPN made a slight error on their marketing page.
Basically, this guy was cyber stalking a female, which I don't have any respect for people who are allegedly cyber stalking people. So you know what? In this case, it was good, and I always say this was good police work because that's the job of the FBI. They're going after all these people, and if they can't break the encryption, they're going to go around it. And in this case, they got these logs, and if PureVPN was lying, that's a pretty bad thing. I mean, because you're going in, and here's the problem. If they're lying, who else is lying and who else is not lying? So again, how do we know? Just because it says it, we don't provide logs, but yet they somehow do it.
Yeah. Now, companies, it all depends on their tech stack, right? So a company could, the FBI could have gone to PureVPN and they said, hey, we think he's using PureVPN because we saw him connecting to one of your endpoints. Can you turn on logging just for this user? And depending on their stack and how they've built things in the back end, they could absolutely turn on logging just for that targeted suspect and cooperate with law enforcement that way. So it's not blanket logging, but they could still target people. Just know that a VPN is not a surefire way to hide yourself at all. You are putting your faith, you're moving your faith and trust from your ISP to the VPN provider. And both have got different risks associated with them. One isn't necessarily better than the other. There are exceptions and a bunch of variables in there. But yeah, this looks like good old-fashioned police work. They didn't have to crack the VPN keys or launch super secret malware to get into his machine. They just requested some logs, requested some IPs, got the guy, and they're like, yeah, okay, cool. We have this guy. And now there's one less creeper on the internet. So everybody's happy.
FBI managed to obtain logs from two VPN providers, PureVPN and WAN Security. So it doesn't say that they asked them for it. They were managed to obtain. So it sounds like they paying some security person off at one of the engineers' office, one way to do it. I mean, this is why there should be a trust no one where they can't turn on the logs. If they had no way of doing it, then you couldn't pay an engineer to do it. So.
The easiest way to protect your company from a subpoena for user data is to just not have the data in the first place. We've seen this with the subpoena against Open Whisper Systems, where they said, hey, tell us everything you can about this account. And they provided the timestamp when they created their account and the timestamp when their device last touched the server. That's the only data they had. That's the only thing they could give. They could hand over. And I'm sure in their system, someone could try to provoke them to write code, but I would imagine that would become a giant court case because the government can't compel you to say something. That's not part of the government's rights, I should say. It would directly infringe on your freedom of speech. They can't make you say something. They can't make you write something that you don't believe. It would be under duress at that point and inadmissible. That said, that's totally, within the legal purview, and you could argue it anyway. But there has been talk about this, especially with Apple versus the FBI, that does writing software constitute free speech? I personally think it does. It is an act of creation, but you could argue that in court.
again, so I think in Signal's case, because again, it's open source and nobody's really getting paid, they would probably just shut down. We're not doing it, and they'll just go out of business, but they're not making any money, so it doesn't really matter. So again, I don't know what these companies are doing. We're just again, you're putting your trust in them, and you have to go based on prior practice. And here's another reason why we say, you know what, all those people telling you to go to this VPN or that VPN, make sure they don't have affiliates, because if they're telling you to do it, they're probably getting some money on the other side just to send it there. So again, your mileage may vary, but be careful. And again, we're not telling you to do bad things and say, well, hide behind the VPN. This is you saying, you know what? I don't want the government knowing what I'm doing. Not because I'm doing anything bad, because I just don't want it out there.
And let's be clear. If a government agency wanted to know what you were doing, a VPN is not going to protect you, right? A government agency, if they wanted to, could go and bug your whole house and get cameras pointed at your monitor and keyboard and collect all your passwords and put in the little USB jumpers that keylog you in hardware, or put on jumper cables on your motherboard to read out the contents of your RAM. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff a government agency could do if they were targeting you and you specifically. It's not that hard to target an individual. What it is hard to do is target a ton of people, because it doesn't scale nicely, right? You have to have a whole lot of resources to target a whole lot of people. You don't have to have a bunch of resources to target an individual. So yeah, I view the VPN less so as protection from government entities, because it's not. I view a VPN as protection from your ISP, which it can be.
So let's move on to our main story. I'm surprised we spoke this long on all this stuff, which I guess is a good thing. But Tom showed us, or maybe I posted this in the WhatsApp group. Again, you want to join the WhatsApp group, please tweet us. We'll get you right in. And we have a lot of fun in there. And we're not that chatty. We're chatty, but we're not that chatty. We have no problem you putting us on mute and checking once a day or whatever it is. But we found out through Robert Heaton that you can track your friends and strangers using WhatsApp, basically doing inspect on the console and seeing when your friends ping the server. I guess that's the best way I can describe it.
So you don't have to use the console. He was using that as an easy visualization. WhatsApp has got the notion of online and last seen. So if somebody is actively using their device, actively on WhatsApp, you will show up as online. If you don't and you time out after a couple minutes, they'll say, oh, we last saw you at 1:25 p.m. And it'll let your friends know that. Now, by default, it lets anyone know this. Unfortunately, you can take this data and start correlating everyone. So you can take a giant pack of phone numbers and say, okay, here's these 3 people. We think they're in a group chat together. And look, we think when one person's online and then the other 2 come online at the same time, and we see that repeating pattern a whole bunch, it's probably one person sending a message and the other 2 getting it and then launching WhatsApp to see the message, getting, changing their status to online. And now we can correlate, okay, we think these people are in a group. It's standard correlation. And when you have a billion users like WhatsApp does, it's really easy to take pockets of people.
Tom?
So they
Tom, I lost the last 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. When you have when WhatsApp, when you have a billion users like WhatsApp does, you can easily take pockets of people and start correlating them fairly easily across timescales. It's really easy to do that when you've got a bunch of users like that.
So basically, we'll put the link in the show notes. It's just 4 lines of JavaScript that you can put in, and you post it to web.whatsapp.com, and you can see it. By the way, if you didn't know, web.whatsapp.com is the beautiful desktop interface for WhatsApp, where basically at any browser, you just type it in, it sends you a QR code that you scan with your WhatsApp client, and now you have the full desktop version of WhatsApp right there, and all the features work, and you have this gigantic keyboard now that you can type with.
So by default, WhatsApp will share out your last seen to everyone. You can change that to contacts only, or you can change it to no one. If you change it to no one, you won't be able to see other people's last seen status either. Kind of a, you can't hide behind something and then can't get data back sort of thing. There might be ways around that. I haven't tested it. But you cannot hide your online status. So if you are online, it will still show online no matter who is looking at you. So if you have a bunch of phone numbers, you can iterate through all of these. And if they're WhatsApp users, actually track when they go offline and come back online, and then use that for timing correlation as well. You could, establish things like Robert is going into sleeping patterns, so you can see when somebody is actively using their device, and you've got a chunk of 6 to 8 hours where somebody isn't. Yeah, they're probably asleep, so you know exactly when they're sleeping. You know exactly when to start breaking into their house quietly to rob them while they're asleep. There's a bunch of things you can do with correlation like this. The biggest one being who's talking to who. And before, we had always, probably naively, assumed that only WhatsApp and WhatsApp's owners, Facebook, would know exactly who was talking to who because they have exposed metadata. But now, apparently anyone with a bunch of phone numbers can correlate that same information with just a wee bit of math and some JavaScript.
And I mean, I'll leave it there, but make sure you turn on read receipts. I know this is a hot button topic, and I know this is slightly different, but if you're a type of person who hides the read receipts, you are an awful, awful human being, because all I want the read receipt for is that you acknowledge that I'm standing outside your house waiting for you so we can go someplace. And if you can't be bothered to do that, then that's a really passive aggressive way to make me wait outside.
I like read receipts, but I totally get why you can turn them off.
And you know what? Android is great because you can see the notification. So if you're so you can see that somebody's asking you a question you may not want to do. But you know what? Be the bigger man or the bigger person or whatever you want to be. And just, you know what? I don't want to answer this question right now. Just like, you know what? You're not, if that's what you're going to lose a friend over that,
But let's say your phone dings, right? You pull it out of your pocket, you see the WhatsApp notification, you don't open WhatsApp, but because you're on your phone, it triggers an online status, and I am watching your phone number through the WhatsApp API, and I see you come online, and then I see you go offline. I know you totally saw my notification, and you turned your phone off.
Well, again,
see, that's the kind of correlation you can do with this.
And I fully believe in the people who say the excuses. I didn't see your message, even though they really did. You know what? I'd rather that than like you turn off read receipts because anyway, we're talking about different things here, but yes, now you can see when they're online and everything else. So it's a problem, which is bad, because now you know when people are online for active stalking, if it's not just you. They say you can do this if they're not your friend. So if, let's say you have a stalker, they have your phone number and they know you're on WhatsApp, I think you have to initiate a conversation with them first.
You probably don't. I don't think you do. At least this didn't say that. Because it doesn't even hit privacy settings at that point.
So if I just send you a message, let's say I send you a really obscene picture as the first thing, and
I don't think you even need to send a message. I think you would just have it added as a contact. You could see online or offline.
Okay. So yeah, that is definitely not good.
Yeah. This is a pretty bad issue. It's not trivially exploitable. You do have to have a bunch of phone numbers, which aren't hard to get, that said. But you do have to have a bunch of phone numbers and time to correlate these things. Now, if somebody, Robert points out in his blog post, you could absolutely build an entire company around tracking and correlating WhatsApp data, because not that it's public, but that it's easily obtainable. And you could expose that as a service and charge companies or government entities money to get this kind of data. You could totally do that. You could absolutely do that with this I would say design oversight. Calling it a bug probably gives it a little too much credit.
So anyway, at that point, with that, we're out of time. So we're gonna end, and we'll probably see you next week. Not that I want lots of news to happen, but I would like some more news. So anyway, everyone, have a good weekend, and we will see you
everyone
next week. Bye.